So, very good evening, friends. We'll discuss the same part which we last lecture we have discussed because there was some recording which was absolutely muted over there and then there was a chaos. So, it will be better to start with the same session again. We have started discussing about the chapter The Dose from the H.A. Robert. And after starting with this chapter, we have learned certain aspects of the dose, the historical review which he has taken, how Hahnemann has arrived up to the dose part and the dynamic aspect of the dose. That's what he has discussed. It was not within a day that Hahnemann was able to come to the conclusion of dynamic doses, but it took a long time to reach to the dynamics. Here he was being an allopathic practitioner. Earlier he used to practice with large doses as mentioned in their pathy. But when he started understanding that even we reduce the medicine quantity, it still works. And he started reducing and doing the practical. With the help of that practical, it was possible for him to reach to the minimum dose. And then he reached to the infinite simals also. And he applied the knowledge of physics, knowledge of chemistry, because of which it was possible for him to reach that the medicine carries inside it the uh, energy. That energy which is saturated in the atom inside the structure of that ingredient's atom in the nucleus. And if we are able to remove that with the help of the proper processes, then it is possible to release that energy and it will work as a medicine. The thought was very perfect and he started working on it. He started doing the practicals. And then he has developed the two different methods, the trituration and succussion. It was the ultimately a result of his intelligence, knowledge, at the same time working on the postulates which he has considered and practically demonstrated that, because of which we reach to the dynamic doses of the medicine and because of which we are able to practice homeopathy. We were on page number 115. We have started with the example which he has taken from the Organon of Medicine, the paragraph 112, which we have finished. Let us go with the 128, what Hahnemann says. The most recent experiments have taught that crude medicinal substances, and then he has not written anything and he started directly, will not disclose the same wealth of latent powers as when they are taken in highly attenuated state, potentiated by means of trituration and succussion. Through this simple process, the powers hidden and dormant, as it were, in the crude drug are developed and called into activity in an incredible degree. There is 156 aphorism. There is, however, scarcely a homeopathic remedy which, though well selected, if not sufficiently reduced in its dose, might not call forth at least one unusual sensation or slight new symptom during its operation on very susceptible and sensitive patients. So what he is explaining? He is explaining that once you start reducing the doses of the medicine, it works. The in the crude form, they never shows any properties, but when you start making them dynamic with the help of proper processes, the energy gets liberates and the medicines which doesn't carry a property in crude state starts working. And this Hahnemann came to the conclusion after practical experimentation of it on himself, with his friends, with his relatives, and that's why it was possible for him to reach to that understanding of dynamic concepts of the medicine. Then in 56, what he says that once you reduce the medicine, it goes on working, it goes on producing signs and symptoms and those sensations which one used to develop. So in crude form, they doesn't carry any properties, but in whenever you make them dynamic, it starts working. It starts showing the reactions and those sensations, which are very essential, very important, starts coming out. Then he 157. All those four aphorisms are very important. 156, 157, 159, and 160. What he says in 157? Although a homeopathically selected remedy, by virtue of fitness and minuteness of dose, quietly cancels or extinguishes an analogous disease. So here he mentions that if you select a proper remedy on the basis of law of similars and give it to the patient, then nature's law of cure works. What is nature's law of cure? It is nothing but a weaker dynamic affection is permanently extinguished in the living organism by a stronger one. So your medicine is an artificial disease and it removes the original weaker natural disease and patient is cured. Aggravation caused by larger doses may last for several hours, but in reality, these are only drug effects somewhat superior in intensity and very similar to the original state. So when you give such a medicine to the patient, many times you get a temporary aggravation, the elevation of the original symptoms of the disease. That is temporarily for few hours and it disappears. And when it disappears, patient again recovers completely. So this is what is called as an homeopathic aggravation. Then 159, he says that smaller the dose of the homeopathic remedy, so much the smaller or shorter is the apparent aggravation of the disease caused during the first few hours. So this is again very important thing which he is mentioning. The dose, if it is minute and if it is not repeated too much, then it definitely works for some time. The aggravation which happens to be there, it never remains persistent. It remains for time being. And specifically when you are dealing with the acutes with high susceptibility, dose should be higher. That means the dose which never contains crude medicine too much, it is absolutely very minute and you should not repeat it. So that there will be no aggravation, or if aggravation happens, it lasts only few hours. It never remains persistent for longer time of duration. And that is what he is explaining. So, see, Hahnemann was very clear with his ideas because of his experimentation. And last paragraph, that is 160 aphorism, what he says, the dose of homeopathic remedies can scarcely be reduced to such a degree of minuteness as to make it powerless to overcome and to completely cure an analogous natural disease of recent origin, undisturbed by injudicious treatment. But we may therefore readily understand why a less minute dose of suitable homeopathic remedy an hour after its exhibition may produce an appreciable homeopathic aberration of this kind. So, when you reduce your medicine to an infinite symbol, and if you go high, 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 it carries more energy. It never carries the crude drug substance, but it carries more energy. And if you give that highly energized or highly potentized medicine to the patient on the basis of law of similars, and if it is stronger than naturalism, it will definitely produce a homeopathic aggravation. And that homeopathic aggravation is a very good sign, which indicates yes, patient is on the path of recovery. Only for few hours he might have an aggravation. So dose, when you decide, it depends upon the susceptibility. You have to catch the susceptibility and then you have to apply your medicine. Once you start doing this, then it definitely shows a proper action of the medicine and the dose which has been given works properly. In acutes, the homeopathic aggravation happens for certain few hours immediately. When you use it in chronic, it never happens immediately. In chronic, generally you used to give a LM scale, or if you go on giving the flushing technique, it definitely works, but that aggravation never produced immediately. It takes some time, even few days, few months, and then when patient has to get cured, at that last point, patient starts showing the homeopathic aggravation. This is the difference between the homeopathic aggravation in acute cases and homeopathic aggravation in chronic cases. One must know this differentiation. Never expect that homeopathic aggravation in chronic cases immediately, unless you you have given very high potency in a pathological case, then that is harmful. Otherwise, it will not show its such type of aggravation over there. And then again he goes with the Hahnemann's aspect. What he says further, in Hahnemann's chronic diseases, he is equally emphatic when he says, but when these aggravated original symptoms appear later on in some strength at the beginning, or even more strongly later on, this is sign that dose of this antisoric remedy, although it was correctly selected, was too great and caused the fear that no cure could be effected through it. And since medicines given in so large a dose are able to establish disease, which in some respects is similar but even greater and more troublesome without extinguishing the old disease. This is caused by the fact that the medicine used in so large dose unfolds also its other symptoms, which nullify its similarity and thus establishes another dissimilar disease, also chronic, in place of the former. So what he is saying, he is explaining very important thing. He is explaining over there that when you give a medicine in crude form, larger doses, it used to produce very strong aggravation. But if you give it in infinite symbols, in minimum quantity and not repeated too much, it will show homeopathic aggravation, but for some time. If you give crude form of medicine, that means larger doses, it used to produce more severe aggravation and it is many times harmful. What Kent has explained in the remedy reaction, what is the first remedy reaction? First remedy reaction is there a long continued aggravation with final decline of the patient. And that thing generally happens with larger doses. Because larger doses always causes aggravation, which is not recoverable, not coming down. But when you give very minute dose, very small amount of medicine in it, it never causes such type of aggravation. It will be a time being and it will only for certain thing. Kirti has asked, what is flushing technique, sir? Flushing technique is given in 6th edition of Organon of Medicine, where you start giving medicines every time with the increasing potency. You could have started with 30, then 31, 32, 33. And that technique was already Hahnemann have mentioned in the 6th edition. If you'll go with the third year syllabus, that is from aphorism number 146 onwards, then you will get that flushing technique somewhere. Exactly, I don't know the aphorism number, but it is given over there. If you read that properly, then you will understand. The name flushing technique is not mentioned by Hahnemann, but it is the one and same what he has mentioned. This flushing technique name is the name given by the British Council of Homeopathy because I have done the PG over there and that name was given to it. Okay, so he is taking the help of Hahnemann everywhere while explaining the chapter, the dose. Okay, let us go ahead. What he says. Again, took the Hahnemann in help. He says, again he says, means Hahnemann says, this, the large dose of medicine, finds its decision already in the first 16, 18, 20 days of the effect of the medicine given in too large a dose, as it must then be checked, either by prescribing its antidote, or when this is not known, by giving another antisodic medicine as suitable as possible to the symptoms then prevailing, and this is very moderate to the symptoms. This is in very moderate dose, and when this is not yet sufficient for abolishing this sinister medicinal disease, by prescribing second medicine as suitable as possible at that time. When the stormy assaults of the excessive dose of even correctly selected homeopathic remedy has been assuaged by the following use of an antidote, or later use of some other antisodic remedy. This remedy, which had only proved injurious through its excessive strength, may be used again, and indeed, as it is homeopathically indicated, with the best success, only in far smaller dose and in far more highly potent strategies. So he is giving all the practical hints. If by mistake you would have used the large doses of the medicine, whenever you use the word large doses is always related, means very low potency. Generally, people used to prescribe in large doses means they used to give either it in the crude form, mother tincture form, either they used to give it in very low potency as 1x, 2x, 3x, or either 1C, 2C, 3C. And if you repeat it in those doses, it used to cause an aggravation. Sometimes if you have given the mother tincture and if you have using it again and again, temporarily patient might feel better, but it is slight amelioration followed by long continued aggravation develops. It indicates your remedy is not working in a proper manner. It indicates that the larger doses are causing severe aggravation over there. And if you want to come out of that, or if you want to bring that down, two methods he has mentioned. First method, if it is very severe aggravation, antidote the remedy. If it is not of severe character, then find it out another antisoric remedy and complement it or give that remedy. These are two possibilities which you can do. And third thing which he has mentioned, if it is in crude form, if it is working or it is producing homeopathic aggravation, the same homeopathic aggravation can be tackled by giving same remedy in more potentized, highly attenuated way, and that will work as an antidote and remove the symptoms which are caused because of larger doses. See, these are all three things which you can use depending upon situation. You should not make it fixed that you should go with one of these methods. It depends upon the situation. So you must know before prescribing what we have to do, whether to antidote, whether to give another antisoric, or whether to utilize it in highly potent dose. It depends upon that specific future situation. And you should be logical enough. Your mind, your logic should work, and accordingly you decide how to go ahead. And one have mentioned all three things, but follow one of them depending upon the situation and what he says further. And still again, what Hahnemann says, no harm will be done if the dose given is even smaller than I have indicated. It can hardly be too small if only when everything is avoided that might interfere with the action of the medicine or obstruct it. They will even then do everything of good that can in general be expected of medicine if only the antisoric was selected correctly in all respects as to the carefully examined symptoms of the disease. He was thus homeopathic, and patient did not by his action disturb the medicine in its action. On the other hand, we have the great advantage that even if in some case the selection should not be have been made quite suitably, we have the great advantage that we can easily put on action and wrong medicine in its minimal dose in the manner indicated above when the treatment can be continued with suitable antisoric without the. So he has mentioned that importance of smaller the dose. Smaller the dose means higher the potency. Smaller the dose means smaller the quantity of the crude medicine thing. And what he says, if you go with these higher dilutions, it will not cause damage to the patient's cell. If you don't repeat it too much, it will not at all harmful to the patient. Only thing is that you must know how much to give and how much to repeat. People never knows homeopathy properly, never read Hahnemann's Organon, and starts using medicines in a haphazard manner. I have seen a practitioner who had prescribed basilinum 1 ml every day for 1 month. The patient who was not having the tubercular diathesis will develop tubercular diathesis only because of this method. This is harmful. So this should not happen. And that's what he's explaining over there, that this method is always a simple method by using higher dilution without repeating too much and waiting for the result. If you use it in higher dilution, that means very less amount of original crude substance, it will not cause a damage. Why he has used the word larger dose? Because he had never gone more than 30. Because he has maximum gone to 30. If you go through his literature, you'll find 1C, 2C, 3C, 6C, 12C, 13, 14C, like that. The And he was knowing that if you go up to the 30, it is beneficial. But later on, Kent has came to the conclusion that this, even if you go beyond that, it works more faster and it releases more energy. And Kent reached to the CM also. So these are all things which he has mentioned over there has a meaning. So what Robert is explaining, Robert is taking help of the Hahnemann, Robert is taking the help of Bonning-Hussein while explaining the concept of the dose. And then Robert says, if prescribers in general, and especially those starting on the path of homeopathic prescribing, would take special note of this warning, they would save themselves much trouble and their patients much needless suffering. Hahnemann felt the waste of time, effort, and actual suffering needlessly caused when he cried. So, what he's saying? This is the method which he has mentioned. It is better to go with low doses, means containing very less crude amount, so higher the potency. And with that, without repetition, if you start, even though your remedy is wrong, it never causes so much of damage. And you can shift to the another remedy. So you can shift very easily to the another remedy with the help of that without causing a severe medicinal aggravation because you would have used a medicine in a higher potency without repetition, and that will not cause severe type of medicinal aggravation. And what Hahnemann was what he says when he cried means he is shrieking with his thought, what would they have risked if they had at once heeded my words and had first made use of all of these small doses? Could anything worse have happened than that these small doses might have proved ineffectual? They couldn't have not have injured anybody, but in their unintelligent self-willed use of larger doses in homeopathic practice, they only passed again through the same roundabout route, so dangerous to their patient. And when in order to save them the trouble I had already passed through with trembling, but successfully, after doing much mischief and having wasted much time, they had eventually, if they wanted to arrive at only correct goal, which I had made known to them long before faithfully and openly, giving them the reason therefore. So what he is saying over there, he is saying that this is what I am telling, that this is my experience that I was using larger doses and what it has caused. It take long time. I have wasted many hours and I have made a mischief against the patient, what he's saying, because of using larger doses. But when I arrived this truth, my suggestion is there that follow this truth and understand this truth and practically utilize. If you practically experiment, you will definitely have use of it. If you don't, then you cannot. But just without experimenting, if you are blaming me or if you are making a comment, it is of a wrong understanding or wrong way. And that's why the dose should be so minimum so as to arouse the vitality in an individual was the law of minimum dose. And this is what Robert is trying by to explain to you with the help of Hahnemann, with the help of Bonning-Hussein, with the help of science, and he's explaining those concepts. I think it is better to stop over here and we'll continue with it tomorrow evening with the remaining part of the chapter. So that's all for today. Thank you. And we'll meet with the third part of the phosphorus in today's session, today evening at 8:50. Thank you and good night.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Have a good evening.